session of 2020. So we made it, everybody. We made it.
Oh, hello, hello. Hi, Florice. How are you?
Hi, good. How are you?
Just wonderful.
So I hope everyone is ready with your accounting questions for the evening. Don't forget to put your city and state in the chat. We're going to get started in 3 minutes. Florice's sister, Gracelyn, is also coming to join us today. So we're going to get 2 CPAs here answering all of your accounting questions for the evening. So. Alrighty then. Give me 1 second, everybody.
Oh, Tawana went off camera. Hi, Tawana.
Oh, hi, Gracelyn. How are you?
Good. How was your Christmas?
It was wonderful. How was yours?
It was good. It was quiet, but it was good.
Yeah, agreed. Quiet is not bad sometimes.
You know what? It isn't. It isn't. You know, it's been a tough year for everyone, but I think we'll all come out of it having prioritized some things.
Yeah, agreed.
Yeah.
Okay, everybody. Tawana, is there any way you can lead this evening? Because I might be back and forth. I have something happening here. So just, you know, we're already streaming on Facebook, our members group. You can, you know, introduce Florice and Gracelyn, who of course you know very well. And then I put a couple of things in the email that I sent earlier today. If you want me to put it in the chat, I can for you that we could talk about. And I know you have questions and others have questions as well. So in fact, I'll throw that in the chat for you right now because I already opened up the email.
Okay.
Would you mind though?
No, I don't mind at all.
Okay, perfect. Thanks, ladies. I'll be in and out, but I will be listening, okay?
No
Awesome.
problem.
All right, well, welcome everyone. Let's see, we've got about 20 participants with us, so I say we get started. Ladies, do you want to introduce yourself just in case there's some new members here that have not yet experienced your wonderful sessions?
Sure. I guess I'll go first. I'm Florice Gregory. I'm a CPA. I've agreed to help out the team to answer any questions that might come. I see that there's a need in the community for financial literacy and feel like it's a good thing for us to just be able to contribute in that way. My background, I've been a CPA for I think a little over 30 years. Started, I went to school in California, worked at Ernst & Young for about 4 years. And then I went into private industry with, I worked for Toyota Office Depot as the director of finance there. And then I worked, I went into smaller companies, working as CFO for Rick Scott, the governor of Florida, just before he became governor. And since then have really been focusing on the small businesses because I see that there's such a strong need because there are opportunities available to them, just like they are in the big companies, but a lot of small companies aren't aware of it. So I thought that it would be a good fit. Plus, I think my personality was a little too strong for corporate America. So decided it was a good time to leave. I live in Jacksonville, Florida now. My husband and I have 3 kids. They're all over the age of 20. So just about empty nesters, except for COVID right now. So yeah, that's what I do, working from home.
Very good. Gracelyn?
Well, hello, everyone. Well, first, if you saw me on the 14th, I look very different. Let me start off with that first. I have, my husband and I are in California right now visiting our children. We have a 26-year-old and a 23-year-old. And my daughter got a little tired of my bun, which I love my little, takes me 5 seconds. I don't even own a comb. I just put some water and I brush it back. So she attempted to give me this Erykah Badu look that it's in progress. So I figured this is a fireside chat and it was just the perfect time to just come looking like a fireside. So excuse my Erykah Badu get up. She told me it would take 2 hours. We've been working on it for 3 days. I'm flexible, so just pray for me all that at the end of the day, it comes together. But anyway, so I was on here December 14th with Florice. My name is not on the agenda. Florice, I am Florice's younger sister. We are a clan of 12. I'm also a CPA. I think I got my license, graduated from the University of Southern California, got my in 1991, and then took my license and then took my exam, I should say, and got licensed shortly thereafter. I worked 26 years in public accounting, 11 years as a partner in public accounting, and 3 years ago exited that level and was really trying to find my next. And over the last slow period here with COVID, Florice has had some activity with some of her smaller clients and some consulting and things that maybe more of a sweet spot for me in terms of client service, delivery, that type of stuff. So she definitely has more of a tax perspective, I think, in terms of just general tax and all around client service, consulting, research. Those are kind of the things I spend a lot of time doing. So, and I can get lost in a research project, probably deeper than she'd like. But I think, the combination works. So I think most of the tax questions tonight, she'll probably respond to. I'll be here, I'm the last of the 12, so I kind of have more of a lighter personality, as you can tell, my Erykah Badu thing. So, we'll hopefully can answer all of your questions. I know there are 25 participants, or maybe now 21. So first of all, Happy New Year to everyone on the phone call. Hope you guys all had a good Christmas if you celebrate Christmas. Happy Kwanzaa if you celebrate Kwanzaa, and any other holiday that you prefer to celebrate. And Tawana, thank you for having us.
Wonderful. You guys are so awesome. Thank you guys for taking the time to talk to us. So let's just jump right in. This is an Ask the Accountant Anything session. We've got a couple already in the chat. So I say we just jump right in. So Felicia's saying, what will the tax penalty / ramifications for taking funds from a 401k to fund a self-directed IRA or something? So what are the tax ramifications or penalties regarding taking funds from a 401k or a self-directed IRA?
So if you take the funds out of the 401k or an IRA and you're under 59 and a half, you've got to pay the 10% penalty and pay taxes on the funds. However, this year is a great year to take money out because of the $100,000 that's allowed in the CARES Act. So you can take it out tax-free and you have 3 years to put it back. So if anyone wants to take some money out to play with and then spend the next 3 years putting it back, no penalties, no incremental tax. Now, if you're going to transfer from a 401k to an IRA, then that's a different story. Again, if you do it this year, you don't even have to worry about the considerations for taxes. So I think it's a great time to do something like that.
So
Well, that has to be done by December 31st. So if you haven't done it yet, you have a couple days to go on and make that withdrawal and get it approved before Thursday.
Mm-hmm.
How do you put it back if you take it out?
You send the money back to the 401k. They're going to make plans for that. So this is something that just came about, but I think you'll just call up the company and send a check. Just like you would with a distribution, when you have to roll over, you send the check, just send it
Okay.
into that.
Yeah, I knew you could take it out without penalty, but I didn't know the part about having the 3 years to pay it back.
Yeah, because after the 3 years, they'll probably charge you the penalty. Yeah. So.
Interesting.
Yeah, I think it's going to be really interesting to see how the CARES Act evolved, because with the new administration coming in, we may see some of these, some amendments to all of those, because it all depends on how the economy recovers and, the goals that the new administration will have for the economy and how to jumpstart it. So as of right now, the CARES Act requires a payback, but, we'll see. I think we'll see some changes.
Yeah.
Interesting. That's a good point. So maybe don't rush to pay it back yet.
Exactly.
Right.
Exactly.
Good, good.
That's what I told my clients about the PPP, because everyone was worried that they were going to have to pay taxes on that money. And I said, just hold tight, because I knew that the AICPA and a lot of accountants were really pushing against the IRS and Congress to make that change. So now they finally made that change, and the PPP is no longer, it's not taxable.
So that was one of Cherie's questions with the PPP as well as the EIDL. So is that the case for both of them?
So the EIDL is a loan, the PPP is a grant. And I am amazed at how many of our people did not get that, the PPP. It's going to be opening up again. And I'm saying, please get your books in order so you can get it. It's a grant and it was so easy to get. But I think that a lot of people didn't have their books completed. And so they missed the window, and then, it got grabbed by so many people. I mean, you see it in the news all the time. A lot of people took advantage who probably shouldn't have, but please get your books ready. We've got about 10 days, maybe 24 days before we get the guidance from the SBA, so that you can all reach out and get some of the funding.
So what does get your books in order mean?
Get your accounting done. Similar, you don't have to get the taxes done, but if you use your credit cards or your bank statements, whatever method you have for collecting your income and expense, you need a P&L.
Okay.
Yeah, so you need a profit and loss statement. So try to get that done as quickly as possible.
I think a lot of small businesses in particular, and even individuals, tend to not do anything about taxes until just around the time when they're focusing on a refund, right? And then you get that box and you're just like, okay, what? And I think what Florice is saying, it's really incumbent upon us, especially if we have businesses, to be very particular about getting those books in order timely. Like quarterly, just making sure, even if you have to do it on an Excel spreadsheet or back of the envelope, like have some sense of where you are, and then it's easy to have that converted. But Florice, I do think this new stimulus does have a provision for minority-owned businesses, so people may want to also take a look at that. There is a provision for some funds available for minority-owned businesses, maybe through the PPP program as well, but they are minority-specific.
Very good. So we need to do our research on what this new provision is. Very good.
I would say connect with a CPA who's staying connected to the PPP.
Okay.
Because it's really difficult. It's 5,000 pages. And so every day, I'm in my Facebook groups and a lot of people are dissecting different pieces of it. And so I get the abbreviated version. So don't try to go and read that. It's going to be overwhelming. Just ask them if they're staying up on the PPP. So make sure they know a few things. So we can tell you enough information here so you know if they're paying attention. Right.
Good.
And then, yeah.
Very good. Felicia has a question. Will there be additional tax deductions for small businesses, owners, and individuals or couples?
Tax deductions from are we talking about the PPP?
I don't think so. I think she's just talking in general. Or she could be still talking about CARES Act, because Felicia asked the first question.
Will there be additional deductions? Oh, yeah. So one of the things that's going to be new in 2017, the meals and entertainment was reduced. So now they're making that 100% deductible starting in January. Because the intent is to try to fuel, the restaurants, because they were having issues. So, I mean, that was one of the things that you might have heard about in the media, because I think Trump was pushing that, because, he's big on the small businesses. And he was getting some pushback on that, saying it's better to give the money to the individuals. But anyway, they agreed that meals and entertainment would be 100% deductible. So go out and eat and support the.
If you have a small business, I guess.
Yeah.
And most importantly, keep your documentation for the business purpose, right?
Mhm.
Because I think sometimes we don't do it right away. And then you're trying to remember, who was I with? What did we talk about? And so the IRS would require that you document the purpose, who you met with, the purpose. Obviously, it has to be a valid business purpose for it to be deductible. So ensure that you keep your records in order.
Yeah, so it's the date, the location, which would be on the receipt, the purpose, and who was in attendance, and the conversation, what was discussed. Just a couple of bullet points. And a lot of people will just write it on the back of the receipt, take a picture of it, and file it away.
Very good. Brian says, so if you roll over a 401k to an IRA, no taxes due to CARES Act?
No tax. Well, so because it's a rollover, there are no taxes for rollovers, period. Yeah.
Mhm.
So.
Yeah, so Brian, that wouldn't be a taxable event outside of COVID and the CARES
COVID,
Act.
right. But if you just want to get some money out, you can go ahead and take it out this year.
And start a small business
Mhm.
or another, something else.
Right. Dietrich says, I played around with minimum stock trades this year. If I sold stock, is there a special tax form I should be looking out for?
Yes, well, you should get it depends on, hopefully, you're with a company that reports. So you should get a 1099-B, I think it is, that will list all of your trades. And then you will complete a form 8949, 8949, and report it. So if you bought and sold this year, that sounds like you have short-term gains, which is taxed a little bit higher than if it was long-term. Usually you want to hold it at least a year, but yeah.
Very good. Steven says, is 59 and a half standard? I'll retire at 57, but I noticed I can't make any negative adjustment to my funds until 59 and a half without being penalized.
Right, but this year, if you take it out this year, then you become 59 before the 3 years is
Period.
right.
Oh,
So go ahead and pull it out right now, and you should be fine.
nice. Steven, you got that? That was good. That was a gem right there.
Congratulations on the retirement, Stephen.
I know.
That was a gem. Okay. Monsilia says, my company opts out of the CARES Act withdrawal of 401k, so I was told I would be penalized. Oh, did companies have the option to opt out?
No, I don't think they do. No.
You can
Try again. It's too soon.
You might also be able to also call up whoever manages the fund, if it's Fidelity or whomever, or Wells Fargo, whoever is monitoring it, and speak to them directly, because I think they'll send you the form.
Yeah,
I don't think that
they don't control that.
I didn't think so.
Yeah, I'm an HR professional, and I don't remember reading that part because we obviously had to modify some things so that people could cash out without the penalty, and I don't remember there being an option.
Yeah.
Yeah, interesting. Let's see. Glenda says, will there be extra deductions for tax returns if I started a business this year?
I haven't heard of that. Well, if you started it in 2020 before COVID, I think it's March 12th is the date. You might be eligible for some funds, but I don't think there are any incentives. I haven't heard.
Will there be any startup expenses? Maybe that was the question, that she would be able to deduct a certain amount of startup expenses. I don't, probably very specific, but.
I mean, you get to deduct all your expenses. So Yeah, so, but I don't think there's anything extra.
Yeah, Glenda, you want to
Um,
clarify a little bit for us so we can maybe answer your question a little better? Andrea says, I reside in California and I took out 25K from my 457. I was informed that this money needed to be paid back within 3 years. I was late logging on, not sure if you covered this question. Yeah, so it was the first thing we talked about. Very good.
So
So,
while we wait for the questions, so we've got the PPP, the EIDL, the original one expires on the 31st, which is in 2 days. But then we're going to be waiting for the new one that just came under the Cash, I think it's called Cash Act, right? The amendment that they just voted on 2 days ago. So it takes between 10 and 24 days for them to give us the guidance on what the application is going to look like and where you go to get these new funds. So just please let everybody be ready for when that, or if you're ready, go ahead and apply. The application takes literally 15 minutes. And I've been doing them. I've been helping people fill them in. It just became quite a few people I was helping free of charge because it's like, hey, you know, it's only 15 minutes. And there's really only 2 questions on there that are financial in nature. So just pull up the form, start filling it in. It's up to $150,000 of a loan, which is the EIDL. But the interest rate is very low and it's over 30 years. Most loans for businesses are 3-year loans, right? So this is 30 years, you can't beat it. So on, you know, on $150,000, you're probably paying back maybe around $700 a month. So you really can't beat it. So I tell everyone to please go ahead and fill it in.
very good. So kind of back to Glenda's question, I always heard that if you start a business, so like say I started a business in 2020, that you didn't necessarily have to file taxes for that first year if you didn't make any revenue. Is that like a real thing? Or was that misinformation? That there's some kind of like forgiveness year?
Well, I would, if you didn't make any money, to me, it's the perfect time to write off. If you had a W-2, right? If you had income where you paid taxes, you probably do want to go ahead because then you can get a refund because it'll offset your taxes. So I always say, if it's a loss is, as long as the plan is to one day make money, right? That it has to be for the purpose of making money, even if it's in the long run.
Okay. Very good. The next question I think was one of Cherie's questions. So she said, how do you interview a CPA? What do you look for? So as we're talking about getting books in order and all of those things, how, if I know I needed a CPA because I just don't have the information that's needed to stay compliant, what are the things I should look for in the right fit?
Gracelyn, you want to go for it?
I think in any service, it's a relationship. You know, I think when Florice and I are in a group and the guy said, you know, you probably spend as much next to your God and your spouse, your CPA should be the person that you communicate everything with, right? And I think we all have dreams and goals for ourselves and for our families. And to just find the person that you can express that vision and that view with that can really help you get there. One of the things I would say is some people like to be smart, right? So you reach to them and they want to start rattling off all of the research or the code or that. Anybody, you have to be able to read it, understand the application to your client. So the mere fact that you know what section and what code section means for something, it's relevant, but not completely all you need. You really want someone you can have a relationship with, quite frankly, that you can text, that you can sit down with your goals, that can really help you with that dream, you know, that dream, whatever you have, and just, okay, here are the things you need to do, here are the things you need to stop spending, here are the considerations. So it has, first and foremost, it has to be someone you're very, very comfortable with. And Also get referrals from some of their clients in terms of responsiveness. How responsive are they? How knowledgeable are they? Again, they're not going to be able to solve all of your questions immediately. I mean, CPAs aren't politicians, right? Politicians talk off the cuff and they don't have to mean what they say. They're code, so you have to research it, you have to apply it. So I think relationship, being very, very comfortable with the person, making sure your family is also comfortable with the person, because it's most of the times, if you have a small business, your spouse, your parents, your children, they're all involved. So I think it's a family decision, it's relationship, it's referrals, and just, again, I have to emphasize just the comfort level you have with that person is incredibly important. Of course, their resume, the school they went with, now those are basic fundamentals, right? Are you educated? Are you trained? Those are the easy check the boxes. You know, do they go to a good school? Do they have experience? Do they have referrals? It has to be your comfort level. I would say comfortability for me would probably be the number one aspect, because you're talking about everything that's very personal to you, things that may have gone extremely well and things that may not have gone extremely well, or family separations and divorces and how that affects your family and marriages and births. And, you know, it's a very personal relationship. So I think it's really important that you have that level of, you know, this person is, you know, like my hairdressers were always my friends, you know, they were good, but also I spent a lot of time with them. They're like therapists, you know. I mean, to some extent, I think your CPA has to fit that role with a lot of technical expertise as well.
That's good. Very good advice.
Being in working with small businesses for the past 3 years with really small businesses, one of the big things, and Gracelyn hit on it, is the responsiveness. A lot of CPAs are so busy that they're not responsive. You need one who's going to be responsive. 24 hours for a phone call is more than enough.
So long.
Yeah,
and, you know,
24 hours is long.
You know, like this week, Florice called me up and said, hey, ask this client for some information. And I'm like, you know what? They didn't send it yet. So it's just reaching out, nudging, hey, by the way, don't forget to have your accountant send over the information. So it's also sometimes being their memory, right? Because they're in the day-to-day, they're running businesses, they're talking to banks, they're talking to employees. And so the aspect is, who is going to remind me that I need to do something? Because, you know, the PPP forgiveness is 12/31. So I sent that email last week. The deadline is the 31st, hadn't heard back. So I sent a courtesy email today and said, hey, did your accountant file that paperwork? So it's about, I think client service to me is you're constantly thinking about your clients. You're constantly thinking about, what do they need? What do I need to do for them? Did I forget something? Oh my gosh, they're gonna need this. And so every time something comes across your desk or your email, how can you use it to help your client? So really someone that lives and breathes client service, because
I know.
I mean,
I only have one phone number, so they call me. I roll over in the middle of the night and there's a text and I respond.
That's good service.
It's just, if they have a question that they send to me after midnight, it must be important. So if I wake up at 2 or 3 o'clock and I see it, I respond.
Gracelyn, you mentioned the PPP loan. I thought the forgiveness was moved back. The forgiveness date was moved back. You're saying it's 12/31?
To what date?
Oh, I thought Gracelyn just said that the PPP forgiveness application date was 12/31. I thought it was pushed back in the latest legislation.
I know, I haven't followed that. I think that there has been some changes in what that is going to look like. And so some banks, I've actually filled out some forms for some people last week before they
switched it up. Yeah, they just switched it up earlier this week. I believe my mother was told that by Bank of America.
Yes, because the banks haven't sent out the forms. Yeah.
Yeah, they had extended the deadline. So for the PPP forgiveness.
So what did they?
For the application, you have to have for the PPP forgiveness, you have to apply for it to be forgiven. And the original deadline was 12/31, but according to Bank of America, they pushed it back. to,
So
I can't remember if the date was February or March, but it's definitely, according to Bank of America, it's not 12/31 anymore.
So you had to apply to receive the
Receive the
money, and you have
forgiveness.
to apply again to ask for forgiveness?
Yes.
So, and the application for forgiveness is very similar to the
Mhm.
application, to the original application to get it.
Mhm.
So
Okay.
I did one last week. I know that they're changing the process around what forgiveness is going to look like, because I don't think the SBA can handle the onslaught. I personally believe that they're going to automatically forgive everyone under 150.
Yeah, they made more work for themselves, it sounds like, by having this separate
Yeah.
second
Oh,
application.
it's a nightmare. So I think they're going to end up forgiving it all, but that has not been decided yet. So that's the final guidance that we're waiting on. So some banks send out the application and say completed by 12/31, and some banks haven't done it as yet.
Yeah.
Okay.
So yeah, I've only done one forgiveness so far, because it was either 8 weeks or 24 weeks, which is
Yes.
really silly.
The 12/31, right?
Yeah, for the 12/31. And who's gonna pick 8 weeks? Everybody's
No
gonna.
one's picking 8
Right.
weeks. Everyone's picking the
Exactly.
24. Yeah.
Yeah, so.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Tawana. I just wanted
That's
to
a good
jump in
example of
with
a
that.
process improvement measure that's needed. That
It's a
didn't
mess.
make much sense, yeah.
It's
Very
the
interesting.
whole thing, the entire CARES Act and the execution of it has been a nightmare. But
So, Melanice, beautiful name, says when setting up the family bank account, what kind of account should be used for multiple people?
when we say account, are we talking about business? It sounds like entity.
Well, yeah, I'm
Legal
assuming
entity?
she means the business bank account, right? Because if let's
Oh,
say this family bank opened an LLC
mhm.
entity, what kind of bank account should they look for?
So you're gonna have a regular bank account, and the issue is gonna be more who has access. You need
Right.
roles, right? So you probably need a CFO and a CEO. You can have a treasurer, but only the treasurer, the CFO need to be the signers. So, 2 people, or you set limits, but you don't want everybody having access to the bank account. So if that was the question.
I mean,
And
the
from
other
what I remember, I was going to say what I remember when I set one up for my family investment club. When we went to the bank, we all lived different places, so we had to fill out the member not present form at the various banks,
Mhm.
and there was a box to check. If you were going to be a signee, or if you're just a partner, or if you were a member manager, like all of those things have to be determined before you go to the bank.
Yeah, and that is going to be on your entity structure, right? Yeah.
What were you going to say, Gracelyn?
Now, I was going to say, I think a lot of times, in addition to the signer, is ensuring that you can separate your operating account from your investing account. You may have, operating account to cover whatever expenses, and you also may want to have some type of investing account, right? And so make sure you don't differentiate your account, so you're not keeping all your money for your operations and your investing. And if you talk to a banker, the banker could do a zero balance account, meaning if there's a check that's written, they take off the amount just to cover the check, so the balance always remains at zero, as another way to really minimize.
Very good. I had a question. So if you're dissolving an LLC, are there tax implications? Are there things to be considered in that process?
So if you're dissolving an LLC, you've got to, from a tax perspective, you got to file what's called the final return. And there's a box that says it's a final return. Now, if you've got assets, you want to make sure that what's happening to those assets. Are you selling them, retiring them, you discarding them? So you want to be careful. Okay, so if there are no assets, then you're good. It's just a final P&L, and you pay taxes if you had a profit, if you had a loss, depends if you're an S-Corp, it rolls onto your 1040, your personal return. But if there's nothing, then it's just a final. You just let the IRS know it's the final return.
Perfect. Wonderful. All right, let's see what else we have in here. Steven says, I think the money doesn't have to be paid back. Oh, he's talking about the 401k withdrawal. I think the money doesn't have to be paid back in 3 years, but you'll definitely owe the taxes after 3 years. If the money removed is paid back within 3 years, no taxes, but surely
Right.
research.
But
Right.
he doesn't have to pay the
It
penalty.
would be the same as if you took it out last year, right? Last year you took it out in 2019, you'd pay taxes if you're under 59 and a half. I think it would be the same thing. It's just that instead of paying the taxes immediately, you pay it back in 3 years. So he's right. If you pay it back in 3 years and you don't pay the taxes, if you don't, then it's like a withdrawal. And if you're under 59 and a half, you get the 10% penalty and I guess the remaining taxes. So he's correct.
Right. Okay. Glenda says, hi, to clarify the question that she was asking earlier, if there were additional benefits in terms of extra deductions on the 2020 tax return.
There are no additional deductions, but the thought was that the forgiveness that you got, let's say salary is expense, right? You made your payroll with the PPP loan. The thought was that you couldn't also deduct those expenses. And now you can. So it's not additional, but you're no longer required to exclude payroll taxes from your P&L, because that was going to be huge. If you imagine someone got $10,000 in PPP funds, and therefore they had to exclude $10,000 of their payroll because it was covered by the PPP. So Congress came back and said, nope, you don't have to exclude it. You get to keep the money. And in addition to that, you include it as an expense. So that was a huge win. But I haven't heard of any, there are no additional expenses that you're allowed.
Right.
Unless there's something at the state level, but I haven't heard of any of that.
We've got a few questions in the Q&A. Jamai says, I have a Roth 401k with my employer, and I just opened my own Roth IRA earlier this month with Ally Invest. How much can I contribute to each maximum for 2021?
So if a 401k,
The raw. Yeah,
I've never heard of a Roth 401k, but the
She said
Roth
IRA.
Yeah, the Roth IRA is usually around 6,000-7,000, and that number can change each year. So you want to check. They increase it usually by like maybe $400 or $500 a year. 401k, that is limited to, I think it's 25% of your taxable income. But if you're 50, you get a little bit more. If you're
You do the
over
catch-up
50,
contributions,
yeah, you do the
right?
catch-up contribution. Yeah, you know that. You're in HR. Yes. Yeah.
Very good. All right. Another question by Anonymous. If I have approximately $4,000 in an old 403B account, is it worth it to take it as a distribution with the tax penalty in order to apply it to the balance of a school federal loan balance with approximately a $9,000 balance?
No. Never pay off those school loans early. Now, especially not with your retirement money. The other thing is, let's monitor what's happening politically with school loans. There's a possibility that it'll be forgiven. So if you pay it off, you can forget it, right? So I would not pay it off. Now, especially not with your retirement.
Okay, Anonymous,
We're
you
not
got
financial advisors, but economically, the interest that you're going to pay for that compared to a $9,000 school loan, the interest, if you think you're paying too much, call the lender and say, hey, I can't afford that. Negotiate a reduction in the interest rate. I mean, money is pretty much free for banks right now. So call up the lender and say, you know, I'm going through some financial hardship. Can you look at reducing my loan? Can you look at extending my terms? Play around with that if you find yourself financially challenged to meet it. again, this is not financial advice, but I'm just saying that's what I would do personally, and I would, explore all the other options.
Very good. Miss Vivian is asking, any major deductions for a 72-year-old retiree? Own my own house, do not have a business.
She should get a business. I'm just kidding.
Yeah, well, that's one.
She's
way
gonna
to
start
do
a
it.
family bank. Don't worry. That's a business. Your family is a business.
So
Get a
she,
business from your house. You can write off those meals and entertainment from the business, as long as the long-term strategy is to make money from that business. That's just something else to think about.
yeah. Well, yeah, we start the family bank and have the business and have business meetings at your home.
Right.
You get 14 meetings a year. Charge market
Learn
rate.
to play the system. That's what I
Yeah.
say.
Yeah.
Nice.
So be creative about a business, something you're passionate about that you can make money in, that can allow you to deduct some of your car expense. She doesn't have a mortgage, but your meals. Just make your business create your deductions.
If you can spend 2 weeks a year at a family, rent out your house when you're gone.
I have a question then. Is she able to, because she has, paid off her house, can she have the LLC do a lease agreement for the small section of, the house that's the office, and then
Yeah, she can rent it out.
pay herself rent?
Mhm.
There you go. There you go, Miss Vivian. Talk to a CPA or Florice or Gracelyn.
Yeah, and the rent is not taxable income to her. So
Goodness. Yeah, see.
Mhm. This is why you need a CPA in your life. This is why. Absolutely why. Raphael says, how do you decide whether to elect to have your single member LLC taxed as an S-Corp? And what are the benefits?
So, and the rule of thumb is if your net income, so after your sales, your revenue minus all of your expenses is 50,000 or more, that you want to convert to an S-Corp. The benefits are that as an S-Corp, you have to pay yourself what's called a reasonableness compensation. So you need a salary. You have to put yourself on payroll. And if you're making 50,000 net, I've seen pay yourself maybe 30, 35,000. That's what I've seen companies do. And then everything else, you don't have to pay self-employment taxes, which is 15%. So self-employment taxes is 15.3%. And so you save, by converting to an S-Corp, you save that 15.3%. And it adds up very quickly.
Very good.
So you figure $50,000 times 0.153, so $7,600 in taxes.
Very good. Stephanie says, oh, hold on. I think Stephen's asking a follow-up question to that one. So Stephen says, isn't S-Corp different from any liable corporation? Can they be combined?
So I think he's saying a limited liability corporation. So an S-Corp is really an LLC that is taxed as an S-Corp. So at the state level, it's an LLC. At the IRS level, the federal level, it's an S-Corp. So you can have an LLC be an S-Corp. You can have it just as a sole proprietor where you file a Schedule C, or you can have, if it's multiple members, it can be a partnership. So an LLC can be a lot of things. An S-Corp designation is something you elect to do, so you pay that lower tax.
And how do you make that determination? It's kind of lends to Paul's question, which is the next question. He says, I would like to open a business and I would like to know what should it be filed under, LLC, S-Corp, C-Corp, etc. He says it will be a tech online business. So how would he really make that determination?
So, I mean, a lot of things will go into that. First, is he going to be the only member? Will there be partners involved? If so, you probably want it to be a partnership. If he is the only member and he projects that he'll make over, 100,000 top line, probably more than 50,000 net income, then S-Corp. If not, he can file as just a Schedule C, sole proprietor. Now, as a tech corp, he probably wants the liability coverage to limit his liability. So he'll probably want to be an LLC for that purpose. So go ahead and my recommendation, get the LLC. If you can do retroactive, you can file retroactive to January of the year you file taxes. So if you're going to start the company next year, you go ahead and get your LLC as soon as possible. Don't do the S-Corp election until you file the taxes. You take a look at it and say, hey, it makes more sense for me to be an S-Corp. And you can do it at that time. You don't have to do it at point of creation.
Okay, very good. And then Stephanie has a question. Is there a benefit in taxes for an LLC versus sole proprietor? I think you really answered this. Do you have to make a certain amount of money yearly for an LLC to make sense? I think you covered this in both the previous questions.
I guess the only thing I would add is sole proprietorship isn't the same as an S-Corp. And so we're not attorneys, but there's legal protection with an LLC versus just a sole proprietorship. So to just protect, separate her personal assets from her business assets, she probably wants to do an LLC and not just a sole proprietorship.
Very good. So I had another question. This was quite one of mine. Can you tell us the questions that are asked on the tax form in regards to cryptocurrency?
Oh, here are crypto people. So, when crypto first came out, I was sucked in. I spent all day and night studying that stuff. And then when it kind of phased out, I kind of stopped following it. But it's just the same as tax. It's considered property. And so you do just like taxes, you need to know the day you bought it, the day you sold it, the price, your basis, which is your purchase price minus plus any fees that you incur. That becomes your basis. So purchase price plus fees. So that's also on the form. And you really just determine your profit. So you're looking to determine your profit or loss on the tax form.
It should be no different than any other stock transaction.
Yeah, it's not different. But I think what's different for crypto is that there's so many transactions. I remember I bought and sold a few, and it became so much. Back then, you had to move it from one platform to the other. But and then I found out that each time you moved it, it was considered a transaction. So it was considered a sale. And so then I stopped. I'm like, it wasn't worth it. Plus it was so much work back then because you had to use like a ramp to move it from Coinbase to Binance, and it was crazy. But yeah, each time you move it is a transaction. So you just want to track that. And I think that's what makes it complicated because people are buying on so many different platforms and you have to put it all together.
Yeah, and even so, as the platforms go away, several of them have gone away this year to U.S. Citizens. And if you didn't download the transaction history, it's a wrap. You don't even have that anymore. So,
but meanwhile, it's probably been reported to the IRS, so you have to be careful because they're going to come after you.
Yeah, and maybe not for some of those companies that went away because they weren't U.S.-based companies.
Okay.
So that could be why they closed the U.S. business.
Right.
But you definitely, it's important as you make those. I get in the habit as I make a transaction, I go ahead and print all of that information so that I could just have it in real time and just file it away.
So I was playing around with it in 2017, and I know I had a wallet somewhere, and I don't remember the name of it.
Oh, bless your heart. You're one of those. They talk, I think Cherie knows the number. Like there's X amount of millions of dollars in crypto lost because people lost wallets or can't remember their
I don't remember them. So
there's billions of dollars now lost because of it.
Yeah.
I have the key written down somewhere, but I can't tell you what wallet it was. I haven't a clue. And so I've been searching.
And that hurts right now too, because the price is going through the roof, especially if you bought it in 2017.
Yeah, I had it in Coinbase, so I have the Coinbase stuff there. And then I don't remember the ramp I used. I thought it was in Binance. So yesterday I was looking and it's Binance says 0. So I don't know where it is.
Yeah, you don't,
And I
We'll have to
remember,
talk. I'll give you some more to just check out. You had Bitstamp, you had all kind of back in 2017. There were several.
yeah.
there were, yeah, there
And
were a
I
lot.
think they were encouraging me to use a non-American company because they weren't, and so I believe it was some kind of Chinese company, but I don't remember.
Okay, that could have been
Yeah,
cracking.
it may be gone now. I know that I lost some Bitcoin, just like minuscule amounts, because I wasn't able to move my stuff over like in enough time, and I was having difficulty, etc. So yeah.
I'm like Warren Buffett.
All
If I
right.
understand it, I'm not doing it. So I really,
Yeah.
I have just completely stayed away. I do follow the news. I heard that Facebook is planning to start his own cryptocurrency.
Yeah, Libra.
Did that like 3 or 4 days ago. So that's very interesting.
Well, they've been talking about it for a while.
Do it.
So yeah.
I don't really understand it, so I don't.
I'm gonna give a shameless plug to the Black Blockchain Consultants if you want to learn about blockchain and cryptocurrency.
What's the name of the group?
Black Blockchain Consultants. So we are part of another group where we educate people on cryptocurrency.
Well, give me the email and I'll look into it.
Will do.
They have to.
I'll drop the link for everybody.
Awesome.
It's a lot of IT techie stuff, tracking and monitoring and consolidating those files. It's interesting.
Let's see what else we have here.
Yes.
Miss Vivian said I had mine in Coinbase and transferred to GDAX. No Coinbase change to Coinbase Pro.
It might be GDAX. It might be GDAX that I use. I'll go check that one.
You got Gemini.
I had them all.
Chinese though. Yeah,
I had them all. Gemini.
That were. Yeah, it was way too many. Paul says, do any of the CPAs, Florice or Gracelyn, work with clients in different states, in New York specifically?
We have clients all over the country. So, Gracelyn, you want to talk about some of the stuff we did this recently?
Yeah, so so I'm in California visiting my my kids, and there were a couple of clients locally here that I live in Florida, by the way. I live in Palm Beach County, West Wellington in particular. So there are a couple of clients here, one in Northern California, one in Southern California. Like Florice mentioned, they reached out to us, existing clients, to get some help on something specific. There were some others. There's one in Georgia that we recently worked with on trying to reduce his tax liability for 2020. There's one in Virginia, and oftentimes because, it's a business, but it's a small business. So of course, you end up speaking to the husband and the wife. We get a lot about their dinner plans and all of that because, they go back and forth. But it's been really very interesting. What we've been able to do is, they're all at different income levels. Someone is trying to reduce the $1 million W-2, tax liability, for example. Someone who owns a winery and someone who owns a air conditioning business. So they're all various businesses, and really just, again, talking about what are your needs? What do you need? What do you need for this year? What do you need for next year? What are your plans for your family? Can you hire your kids in your business to get some of your income in a lower tax bracket? So it's been really interesting. I mean, they're just really all over the country, and it's what are your needs? What do you need? What's your tax liability? How can you very comfortably reduce it within, the confines of the law? And what do you need to reduce it in years to come? For someone that's earning $1 million in a W-2, he's probably going to need some help on a longer term basis in terms of not just this year, but future years. Someone has money in Canada, they're Canadian. How do you bring it into the country? So again, they're all over from all different nationalities and whatever the needs are. Some need assistance with IRS, so we're working with some people on that. different nationalities, different business size, W ties, business size, investors. So again, it can be wherever you are.
Very good. I have a feeling you ladies are going to be getting some phone calls, so we're going to give you a chance to give your contact information. But I have another question. And Florice, I know you do a lot of audits. You have auditing background. When you're auditing a company's financials, what do you look for?
We're gonna let Gracelyn do that.
I'll take that. I spent 26 years primarily in audit. You know, the key thing about audit is you assume that everyone has the intent to steal, if I say that. And that's just when I go in to audit a company. I know we talked about Nike the last time I was on there. So let's talk about a big company like Nike. The first thing you want to go in is you want to understand the business. You want to understand, I listen to those investor calls if it's a public company, or if it's, you know, what's really driving the business? What are the economic trends, macroeconomics? What's happening in that space? Are they contracting? If I have a business that's contracting, I'm a lot more skeptical if revenues go up, because, you know, the market is contracting. So you're really trying to understand, you're starting up here, very macro, you're understanding all the nuances of that business. What, you know, are they, trying to think of a good example. Okay, I had a company one time I was auditing that sold products in Home Depot. They sold grout. It's not sexy, but they sold grout. So I would go into Home Depot, I'd look at their prices. Again, I'm always thinking about my clients relative to their competition. So I figured, so when I go into audit, I am thinking about, where do you do business? If you do business in Venezuela, what's happening in that economic market? What's happening in Brazil? Is there the chance of a kickback in certain markets? The whole idea is you're focusing on, is there fraud? And while you can never audit for fraud assurance, there are certain relationships you look at. How many times are their inventory turnover for the year? But what you're really focusing on is every company's intent is to increase expenses, increase revenue, and decrease expenses, right? Everybody wants a bigger bottom net income, except when we're talking about taxes, because then you want a lower net income. But if it's not tax related, you're really trying, I mean, public companies, what are they always trying to do? If they increase the net income, the stock price goes up. So it's really about understanding each industry. And I did a lot of small clients. I basically understood from a service company to a manufacturing company, and you understand, you're always reading the news because you always have to understand what's going on in the market. And the objective is, how can you identify and certify to a certain degree of reasonableness that that income number is right? And a lot of times they have debt covenants, right? The debt covenant may be, you have to, you know, your cash flow has to be there. So your revenue has to serve, your debt service has to. So you're looking for incentives that a company may have to inflate the numbers to make sure that they can meet the margins, or they can meet the debt covenants, or they can meet the shareholder expectations. So that's in a nutshell. And so to do that, you do a lot of sampling. You sample a lot of revenue transactions, you send a lot of confirmations, you confirm with banks, you confirm with the large revenue stream, you confirm, there's just a lot of paper, a lot of movement, but you really go back and you validate all of the, within reasonableness, all of the transactions for the year.
Very good. Very, very good. See if there are any additional questions in our chat that we haven't covered. If you've got any final questions, get them in there.
And to everyone in the chat, I did put in Gracelyn's and Florice's emails. So if you want to engage with them, their emails are available to you.
I think we covered all of the questions that were in the chat.
Fantastic.
Oh, Stephen just added one more. Operating a business, one make decision through percentage to set finances aside and label the set aside finances, audit funds up or down. I'm not sure what the question is. I think Stephen's just maybe making some comments based on what you just went over, Gracelyn.
Is there some clarification that you need, Stephen, that I can help you with?
Yeah.
Yeah, Stephen, add if you want some clarification. Oh, Erin says, can they give examples for good reasons for withdrawing money from IRAs?
This year, you don't need a reason. But
I think that's the good reason.
but you only have 2 days.
One of the things that Florice and I, so Florice we've joined this group of a very, probably about 80 CPAs that are focusing on investments, right? And particularly, I think that a lot of people, even if they have good jobs, they just kind of think of the IRS burden as a necessity. Got to pay taxes. Yeah, we all have to pay taxes. The question is, if you really look at, we all talk about Trump's $750. I think if you were to pull his his tax return, you went through it, there's some documentation even for the $70,000 he spent on his hair. We may disagree, but there's documentation. And all the IRS asks for is that you have a position and, and so I'm not saying he's going to pass that audit. I'm just saying that's possible. So one of the things that we have seen some people do this year is if they want to start a business and they want to look to basically create more wealth, like the family bank or whatever, is take that money off when they can do it without a penalty and find ways to take it out of the market, maybe in real estate investments or some other type of investments that allows you to have more control. I mean, yeah, your 401k plan, it's there, we put money in it, we touch it when we're 60 or 59 and a half, and that's great. But maybe you can use this time to take it off and make some investments where you can actually reduce your tax burden. Like if you were to invest in, for example, some real estate, could you then reduce that W-2 taxable income because you now have the depreciation on the real estate? Or, so there are creative ways in this time that we have seen some of our clients and this group that we're in really be proactive about owning that wealth and not letting it all sit in the market. And, expecting that at some point, this really active real estate market is going to turn. And when it does turn, are we on the other side of it? There are a lot of opportunities for investments in lower income properties, for example. Just really finding another option to deal with that money if the opportunity, and this is maybe a unit that we may not have again. To take it out tax-free and redirect it.
And please,
and ultimately use it.
Yeah, and please go and apply for those EIDL loans. Please apply for it. You have a year to decide that you don't want to use it and give it back, but take it because we don't know what the next year is going to be like. So if you qualify, just go ahead and apply for it.
Very good. Erin says, thank you. That's exactly what she was curious about, using the money for actively investing and other things. So wonderful. Mm-hmm. And then Stephen says, do you have to report money set aside to cover audits?
No,
so it's just a financial statement audit, or I mean, it's if you haven't paid for the audit, you don't have an obligation. It's just something that you're holding, but you don't have to necessarily. If it's income from any other source, you've already paid taxes on it, right? So you're not necessarily earmarking it for that is not reportable.
So you don't pay taxes on cash, you pay taxes on net income. And I think that's the big misnomer. And I probably should explain this because I've seen quite a few of my clients who have not taken money out of their S-Corps because they think when they take it out is when they pay taxes. You pay taxes on the net income. That has nothing to do with cash. You can take all the money out if you want to. It has nothing to do with how much taxes you pay. So that's one, well, there is one exception. Unless you're taking out the loan that you got from the EIDL to use for business, right? You can't borrow a loan and then take it out and use it for personal. So if you have not had any loans, you can take out all of the money you have in your business without having a tax implication. Because, and maybe one day we'll do a class on the P&L. Actually, we did, right? It's revenue minus expenses. That's what you pay taxes on. And I think it's—
So from a tax perspective, you want to reduce that net income number as much as possible on your LLCs and your smaller business, right? You want to reduce your tax burden. Most of these companies that I've audited are C-Corps, and they use other strategies, because there's a whole other body of taxes, general accepted accounting principles, and there's hope that matches with with taxes for C-Corps, which is very different. But from an individual perspective, even there, they're managing their taxes, but they find a way to increase that net income, because what the stockholders are looking at is net income before taxes, right? They're also looking at the tax rate, but they get the revenue up, the expenses down, they have a better net income, stock price goes up. From a personal perspective though, and LLCs in particular that are individually owned, you really want to think of strategies to reduce that taxable burden, because like Florice said, it flows through to you. You don't pay self-income tax on it, but self-employment tax on it, but the excess, it's basically you pay tax on it, flows through to your 1040. So you want to find a way to.
And so that's what we've been working on with some of our clients, finding how can they, because they've got the net income from the business. And so we're helping them create other entities, because at the end of the day, you add the entities together. So if you have an LLC that you have your real estate in, and you have the business, you can then have your business make lots of money, because you need financial to borrow money, they need to see that you're making money. So you have that one entity over there that's making money, but then you have the real estate, kind of like what Trump did, where he has all this real estate that he then has lots of depreciation that shows a loss. So then he adds those two together, and it doesn't look like he's making any money, when in fact he's making tons of money. So there are all kinds of strategies to help you.
Very good. Well, on that note, I would say, ladies, thank you for tonight. I mean, the information is always so very helpful as we end the year and people are looking at how to, end the year on their businesses and think about their tax strategies for next year, right? Because they shouldn't be just thinking about them now, right? For next year. I would imagine you're going to get quite a few emails and quite a few phone calls with people needing your help as they really think about what we talked about tonight. Any final comments that you want to share with the people?
Well, I'd like to say have a happy new year and stay safe. I think that's most important. And I think equally important, I think we need to really start thinking about how we shift our wealth conversation as a group, as an ethnic group. And we remember that small decisions can have larger impacts. So let's not think that I don't have that much money. No matter how much money you have, you can just start to think differently. I think we have to get a shift in how we see money, how we see finances. I know we're all looking for the $600 if anybody's going to get it. Listen, it's only $600. Let's start thinking about how you can make 6 million and 60 and 600,000, and because that is the future of us as a people, is our ability to build wealth, retain wealth, and pass it through to generations.
Yeah, that's wonderful advice. And you're speaking to the right crowd, because these are members, right? So they already understand the importance of that, which is why they joined the 10K project, because that's definitely our mission. So that's perfectly in line with what we're trying to do, and why we have people like you come and speak to the community to help us get that mindset shift going in the right direction.
Good. Well, it's our pleasure.
Yes, Happy New Year to everyone. Stay safe.
Madam CEO, you want to say anything? Oh, and tell your daughter we're loving the hair, Gracelyn.
Love the hair. The do-rag, the everything.
Wait, I need a picture. Hold on.
Fabulous. I just want to say Happy New Year to everybody. Happy New Year to everybody, and we will see you officially in 2021. I'm calling it 2021 is the year of Black wealth. That's what we're going to call it.
Yes, I'm calling it with you. Guys, be safe.
Thank you, everybody.
Good night, everybody.
Happy New Year.
Okay, bye-bye.